Here we go. Okay, so I got this great idea for a talk. I can't remember how it popped into my head, but I just thought, like, we have what I'm going to call a spiritual birthright. And it is like you're born in this castle. You're born in this inconceivably huge castle. Your parents are king and queen, and their parents before them, and their parents before them. And you have got it made. You've got tapestries. They're feeding you grapes like as you lay down, or whatever happens in a castle. I don't know. It's a nice castle. And then somebody, let's say it's a witch, comes and steals you out of your castle one night. This is like the plot of Sleeping Beauty, right? It's something like this. They steal you out of your castle, and they just dump you in the woods somewhere. And you're a baby, you have no idea what's up. And you're just like raised by wolves or peasants or whatever. And one day, somebody sees you, and let's say you've got some like birthmark. You've got some fancy thing that they recognize, yes, like something very obvious. And they go, wait a minute, you're the prince or princess. And you go, what? Me? And they say, yes, you are. This is all of your kingdom. This is yours. And you go, no, it's not. And they say, I swear to you, I remember, I saw your birthmark when they paraded your tiny baby body around like after you were born. And they start to convince you, and you start to realize, like, wait a minute. That's my castle. I'm supposed to be living there. And the story could keep going, but the person who stole you out of the castle, maybe they killed your parents and they're living in there now, and it's like you got to go and reclaim your birthright. This is everything okay? It stopped. But this is exciting. You have to get the whole thing. We're back on? Great. Okay. So at some point, you recognize I've got this birthright that I need to reclaim. And this is what I like this as a metaphor for spiritual life, because this is kind of like my experience. And I thought about this and the idea of the hero's journey, like the Joseph Campbell's basic idea of a very common myth came to mind. And I thought it can kind of be explained through this. I'm going to use my life as the example, even though I would not say that I'm a hero in any way, shape, or form. I'm just like a normal person in these circumstances. But we're going to use this. So I printed it out. It's long. So these are the 12 basic steps that Joseph Campbell lays out as like what makes a great story, and this is what people use to write screenplays and things like that. So you start off in an ordinary world, and this is where the hero exists before his present story begins, oblivious of the adventures to come. It's a safe place. It's everyday life where we learn crucial details about our hero, his true nature, capabilities, and outlook on life. This anchors the hero as a human, just like you and me, and makes it easier for us to identify with him and hence later empathize with his plight. So, if I use me as an example, this is before martial arts. This is what I usually describe as my zombie state of life, where I would just basically wake up, go eat breakfast, go to school, do homework, like not do homework, and then go to sleep, and then do the whole thing again. And then at some point I had a job and just replaced school with job, and that's it. This is what happened in our first metaphor, like after you were stolen from your castle and they just threw you in the woods and you don't know what's what. So that's just like normal life, normal existence. Then we get call to adventure. The hero's adventure begins when he receives a call to action, such as a direct threat to his safety, his family, his way of life, or the peace of the community in which he lives. It may not be as dramatic as a gunshot, but simply a phone call or conversation with whatever the call is, and however it manifests itself. It ultimately disrupts the comfort of the hero's ordinary world and presents a challenge or quest that must be undertaken. A great example of this is in The Matrix, where it's like he finds out that things are not the way that you think that they are. And so for me, this was, my Matrix moment was I went to a martial arts class. My friend Michael invited me to his dojo, which turned out to be Sifu Brown School. And I went there, and I was doing class and having a great time, and I'm thinking, this is great, this is martial arts, this is not what I thought it was. Because when I practiced earlier as a kid, it was not the same. But really, the moment that call to action that threw me out of the comfort of my ordinary world was hearing Sifu Brown talk at the end of class. And at some point, very early on, I also went to a meditation class, and I heard him talking about things like happiness as a choice, and being mindful and aware, and being able to just basically choose how we live our lives. And that was a totally new, foreign concept to me. And so that was like, oh, that's kind of scary, that whole idea, but it's exciting. So the next level, the next thing that happens to the hero is refusal of the call. So although the hero may be eager to accept the quest at this stage, he will have fears that need overcoming, second thoughts, or even deep personal doubts as to whether or not he is up to the challenge. When this happens, the hero will refuse the call, and as a result may suffer somehow. The problem he faces may seem too much to handle, the comfort of home far more attractive than the perilous road ahead. This would also be our own response, and once again helps us bond with the reluctant hero. So this for me was pretty simple. I went to Sifu Brown School, and at the end of the class, I didn't sign up. I was thinking to myself, this is way too crazy. I need some time. I'm going to go back and finish school. I'm going to do whatever and just like get all my ducks in a row because I want to be able to really do this. And I get a lot of people come in and they say this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be here every day and da-da-da-da. And I say, that's exactly what I said, and I wish I had those months back, because when I left, it was months before I came back and actually started practice. The next one is meeting the mentor. So at this crucial turning point, the hero desperately needs guidance. He meets a mentor figure who gives him something he needs. He could be given an object of great importance, insight into the dilemma he faces, wise advice, practical training, or even self-confidence. Whatever the mentor provides the hero with, it serves to dispel his doubts and fears and give him the strength and courage to begin his quest. So Stephen Brown is obviously my mentor, and the beginning of practice is scary. There's a lot there that seems overwhelming, and very commonly people in the beginning of practice, both with our physical Kung Fu practice and Tai Chi, but also with meditation, it seems like this is an impossible journey. It's overwhelming to the point where I'm sure that I can never make it. But through that mentorship, we kind of get the courage and the ability to break through. And the next step is that, crossing the threshold. So the hero is now ready to act upon his call to adventure and truly begin his quest, whether it be physical, spiritual, or emotional. He may go willingly or he may be pushed, but either way he finally crosses the threshold between the world he's familiar with and that which he is not. It may be leaving home for the first time in his life or just doing something he's always been scared to do. However the threshold presents itself, this action signifies the hero's commitment to his journey and whatever it may have in store for him. So this for me was was not just like signing up for class, but it was actually what I would consider like the whole first part of practice up until Yellow Sash, like that first section of about a year, where it was like all new and exciting and scary, and like getting beyond this stage of, oh, do I love this? Can I do it? Is it something that I'm really going to commit to, or is it something that I'm just kind of playing around with? And then after that first stage is, and that seems like a long time, like a year, but that's the threshold really in our practice, you know. And after the first 6 months, I would say, of meditating for me was a big threshold when I made this goal of I'm going to do it every day, and I actually did it. Or maybe it was the first year, I guess, because that was what I did every single day for a year. It was a big deal for me. And then we have, the next step is tests, allies, and enemies. Now, finally out of his comfort zone, the hero is confronted with an ever more difficult series of challenges that test him in a variety of ways. Obstacles are thrown across his path, whether they be physical hurdles or people bent on thwarting his progress. The hero must overcome each challenge he is presented with on the journey towards his ultimate goal. The hero needs to find out who can be trusted and who can't. He may earn allies and meet enemies who will, each in their own way, help prepare him for the greater ordeals yet to come. This is the stage where his skills and or powers are tested, and every obstacle that he faces helps us gain a deeper insight into his character and ultimately identify with him even more. So, of course, our practice is filled with tests and allies and enemies. And the tests are obvious, like those are the tests that we actually have, and even just a hard class can be a test. Our allies are all of the students, and some of you think like, yeah, some of those are my enemies too. No. Your best allies and your best partners are the ones who push you. And for me, I had plenty of people who I was practicing with early on who I thought like, man, this guy is just like giving it to me right now, and it's all I can do to survive this. Or she is like not giving me an inch, she's absolutely smothering me right now. And that's great. Those are your best allies, your fellow students. And your enemies, who are they then? Your enemies, it's inside your mind. And this is for everybody. But when you're on a journey like this and trying to accomplish something real, and you get in your own way, you also have people like, I love to complain about my mom early in practice, like telling me, you're not going to do this for a living, what are you, crazy? And that was a little bit of it, and other people who, are generally afraid of the growth that you're undergoing, don't see the benefits and how great it is for you yet. But mostly it's us. It's us holding ourselves back. It's us scared of the change. It's all of the negative self-talk, all the ways that we keep dragging ourselves back into our ordinary ways of existing that we've, tried to completely let go of, but they keep kind of grabbing on. The next one is approach to the inmost cave. The inmost cave may represent many things in the hero's story, such as an actual location in which lies a terrible danger, or an inner conflict which up till now the hero has not had to face. As the hero approaches the cave, he must make final preparations before taking that final leap into the great unknown. At the threshold to the inmost cave, the hero may once again face some of the doubts and fears that first surfaced upon his call to adventure. He may need some time to reflect upon his journey and the treacherous road ahead in order to find the courage to continue. This brief respite helps the audience understand the magnitude of the ordeal that awaits the hero and escalates the tension in anticipation of his ultimate test. So this is something that you guys have all, to some extent, experienced in practice, especially in meditation. The inmost cave, and this is just the approach to the inmost cave, but this is like when we are, we get a little bit of progress in the beginning and we feel like we're kind of doing it, but then when we really get down into it, we recognize all that there is to do. We start to get all that self-talk and really become aware of what's going on inside, and like aware of how we are our own enemy in the situation. That's it. And it's scary. The inmost cave is not to be messed with. The next one is ordeal. The supreme ordeal may be a dangerous physical test or a deep inner crisis that the hero must face in order to survive, or for the world in which the hero lives to continue to exist. Whether it be facing his greatest fear or most deadly foe, the hero must draw upon all the skills and his experiences gathered upon the path to the inmost cave in order to overcome his most difficult challenge. Only through some form of death, that's in quotations, can the hero be reborn, experiencing a metaphorical resurrection that somehow grants him greater power or insight necessary in order to fulfill his destiny or reach his journey's end. This is the high point of the hero's story, and where everything he holds dear is put on the line. If he fails, he will either die, or life as he knows it will never be the same again. So the easy parallel for this in my life is the Black Sash test. And I wouldn't say that actually fits in the wide scheme of things, but like up until where I am now, I would say that was it. The Black Sash is definitely an ordeal, the Black Sash test. And there's a lot to it that you guys don't know about, and if I told you about it, you would probably just quit. But the test itself, that lasts a week long and is incredibly physically challenging and painful and all of that, is an ordeal. And then the next one is reward. And then in parentheses, seizing the sword. After defeating the enemy, which is, I guess, the Black Sash test, surviving death and finally overcoming his greatest potential personal challenge, the hero is ultimately transformed into a new state, emerging from battle as a stronger person and often with a prize. The reward may come in many forms: an object of great importance or power, a secret, greater knowledge or insight, or even reconciliation with a loved one or ally. Whatever the treasure, which may well facilitate his return to the ordinary world, the hero must quickly put celebrations aside and prepare for the last leg of his journey. So I would say my reward for completing the Black Sash test, and for the first 10 years of my practice, was the Black Sash, but not the physical sash that's nice. It's more like thinking of myself as a Black Sash. Or, as you guys have seen up on the wall, hangs my certificate for a teaching certificate, the Seafood Brown Gaming, thinking of myself as a seafood. And before Black Sash, as much as I would love to say, I had all the self-confidence and felt like a complete human being, there was some part of it that I felt like, unless I get the Black Sash, I don't know if I can do this. Unless Sifu says it's okay, you can be a Sifu, you can do it, I don't know if I can do it. And so I passed the test, and he said, "You're a Black Sash, you can be a Sifu." I thought, okay, I got it. That's my reward, is the inner power, the confidence, the feeling of validation, which shouldn't be necessary but often is, and that was necessary for me. The next one is the road back. So this stage in the hero's journey represents a reverse echo of the call to adventure, in which the hero had to cross the first threshold. Now he must return home with his reward, but this time the anticipation of danger is replaced with that of acclaim and perhaps vindication, absolution, or even exoneration. But the hero's journey is not yet over. He may still need one last push back into the ordinary world. The moment before the hero finally commits to the last stage of his journey may be a moment in which he must choose between his own personal objective and that of a higher cause. So, I would say for me, this was it doesn't seem like it would fit, but moving from Michigan, where I was just in my world there, learning from Seafood Brown, feeling really comfortable, being a Black Sash, and being able to walk into the room and everybody being like, "Oh, he's a Black Sash, he's so amazing." And coming out here and just starting from nothing and opening up a martial arts school and going back into the world where I had real responsibilities and needed to really do something. And that was difficult. Some of you guys have heard me talk about that, but it was a year from when I moved until I actually opened the school, and that was a tough period to stay all over my practice, my meditation, my discipline, all of that stuff was really challenged, thrust back into the regular world. The next step is resurrection. This is the climax in which the hero must have his final and most dangerous encounter with death. The final battle also represents something far greater than the hero's own existence, with its outcome having far-reaching consequences to his ordinary world and the lives of those he left behind. If he fails, others will suffer, and this not only places more weight upon his shoulders, but in a movie grips the audience so they too feel part of the conflict and share the hero's hopes, fears, and trepidation. Ultimately, the hero will succeed, destroy his enemy, and emerge from battle cleansed and reborn. So this could be a couple things. I would say that I have not actually been completely resurrected yet, although there's this ongoing challenge of, being a Sifu and a teacher, of being the person who I want to be, of having the kind of impact that I want to have on the world. And to some extent, maybe like getting through the first years of opening up the school and not being a miserable failure, and finally getting my mom to stop telling me that I should do something else in my life. Some kind of resurrection. But I think the actual resurrection, unless you are like out there on an actual like journey up a mountain or whatever, it comes a little bit later in life. And then there's the return with the elixir. This is the final stage of the hero's journey, in which he returns home to his ordinary world a changed man. He will have grown as a person, learned many things, faced many terrible dangers, and even death, but now looks forward to the start of a new life. His return may bring fresh hope to those he left behind, a direct solution to their problems, or perhaps a new perspective for everyone to consider. The final reward that he obtains may be literal or metaphoric. It could be a cause for celebration, self-realization, or an end to strife. But whatever it is, it represents three things: change, success, and proof of his journey. The return home also signals the need for resolution for the story's other key players. The hero's doubters will be ostracized, his enemies punished, his allies rewarded. Ultimately, the hero will return to where he started, but things will clearly never be the same again. So, I imagine at some point in the future, there will be some kind of return with the elixir. I think of this as like bringing it back to what this is supposed to be. It's how the spiritual birthright and the spiritual journey. This is like enlightenment. This is like the final return home and the recognition of what we truly are. So the elixir is that final recognition of the true self. That getting beyond the ego, the enlightenment, and we hope that it's like a big one at the end. And I'm certainly nowhere near there. And some of you were like, when I used to listen to Stephen Brown talk and give meditation talks, I would think, he's enlightened. This is an enlightened man. I'm pretty sure you guys do not think that about me yet, but maybe you think to some point and to some extent, sure, and I agree, I'm more enlightened than I was when I was a kid, before I started martial arts. And it's not it. It's not it. So I can recognize that. But if you think of this in terms of like a spiritual birthright, this final step is like getting back to your castle. Getting back to that thing that you always had, that was always yours, and it was just kind of hidden from view. And so it's like we go out on this epic journey to reclaim our birthright, and at the end, you kind of knock down the gates to the castle and you walk in, and this is it. It's a whole new, completely different world. But it has been there You know, the castle was always right up there on the hill. You could see it. The enlightenment is kind of like my story of finding my wallet, and it was just like in my bag the whole time. That's it. But it seems there's much more excitement and drama to it than just looking for your wallet and finding it. It's just like you're going all over the place for it. And it's entertaining. It's why it makes a good movie. And if you like to think of God as watching you, this is why she is watching. They're not interested in just like seeing you sit on the couch and watch TV. You want God to be interested in what you're up to. So we go on this journey and we experience all of this strife and ordeal, and then we get to the end and we get this elixir and we get to bring it back. And maybe we get to bring it back to other people, or maybe it's just ourselves. But it's, on some level, I think makes sense to think of it like you're just returning home to your castle. So when we meditate, this is like we're just taking another step on that journey. And it's helpful to think of it as being like a hero's quest, a hero's journey. And every time you sit and meditate, you might just take one more step. You might sometimes feel like you're getting pushed back, but again, that's just our internal enemies, our internal strife. And if you just keep going and put one foot in front of the other, eventually you will make it back to the castle that was always yours. So we're going to do that now. We're just going to take another step in the right direction. Sit. Okay.